Hello and welcome to Additive Insight, the original additive manufacturing podcast, and your source for news, interviews, and comments on the latest 3D printing and AM intelligence, brought to you by TCT Magazine. I'm your host Sam Davis, and today I'm joined by Addiguru founder and CEO Shuchi Khurana, as well as Mark Forth, the company's business development director. Addiguru is a software company that has developed a real-time monitoring and issue detection solution for additive manufacturing technology. The company's mission is to unlock additive manufacturing's true potential with the power of artificial intelligence. Throughout our conversation, the pair explain how the company leverages AI to detect defects and deliver actionable insights, while also outlining how the company's product helps to streamline the analysis process. We also discuss the company's ongoing industry partnerships with the likes of Authentise and Xact Metal, as well as what is required to scale additive manufacturing. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. For more Additive Insight, head on over to tctmagazine.com, where you can subscribe to the print edition of TCT Magazine and our weekly Additive Insight newsletter for free. SK, Mark, welcome to the Additive Insight podcast. We'll be talking today about the importance of in-situ monitoring for AM, as well as what it is required to scale with the technology. But first, SK, I wanted to start with the background of the Addiguru business and the motivation behind setting up that business. So can you just tell us that story?
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here. Yes, Addiguru. As you can see from the name, Addi comes from additive manufacturing, and Guru comes from the fact that we are we have created a software platform that can help uh, guide the process, and hence Guru. Guru is the one who guides you or guides it. So we're trying to, we're the software will guide the process. Um, uh, so so yeah, the business came about from the fact that I have a lot of experience in computational material science and have done a lot of work in welding and joining in terms of simulation um, of residual stresses as well as microstructure. And welding and joining is pretty much precursor to additive manufacturing. So it was a natural fit in here over the last 50, and I've been in the business for about 27 years. And uh, I also had forays into entrepreneurship, doing a medical device startup and a couple of other companies. And in about 2019, one of my mentors really pushed me towards this, saying this is what's needed. And I've been thinking of doing something like this like 20 years ago, but the technology was not there. So I realized market or additive manufacturing obviously is really upcoming and growing, but the users or the people making parts were struggling because they didn't have full insight. They didn't know what's going on fully, so they were making a lot of guesses. And there were some companies working on providing some kind of insight, but they were going for a moonshot. And people came to me and said, "Hey, can you take this camera and get me layer by layer pictures?" And I said, "We can do more. We can also analyze that automatically so that you get a yes or no or maybe kind of an answer." And that was very appealing to them. So I went to a couple of conferences, talked to a few people, got a really positive feedback, and hence the journey started in late 2019.
You mentioned there that it was a consideration of yours to do this 20 years ago, and you eventually did it in 2019. So what was the difference between the landscape 20 years ago and in 2019 when you looked at it again? What was different, and what was the opportunity in 2019 that wasn't quite there in say 2005?
Well, 2005 additive was super small. Even the company I was in, it's called EWI, and we would talk about it as cladding and multiple layers doing it. And it was not that big a deal. But however, in welding and joining, something like this is needed. We would I was in a simulation group and we'd do simulations. And then we would say how we were going to validate that. That was a big question. So, what kind of cameras we can use, what kind of sensors we could use, what kind of technology we could use. Uh, the the best technology at that time was thermocouples. All these thermal cameras and other things were not affordable, not practical, and getting all that data in the compute power was not there. And AI was pretty much. I tried using AI, but there were no proper, compute power was not there, algorithms were not there. So all this has matured. The additive manufacturing has matured in 2010s. AI ML got another big boost. Computing power is increased, improved. Sensors have significantly improved. So it all is coming together, and that was uh, that was really really exciting for me because thinking about it, said it's not there, and then dropped that, and then I could come back and pick it up. That was very exciting. Although as an entrepreneur, you have to sometimes, especially when you're technically into it, you have to also see whether people want it or not, whether it's going to benefit the industry or not, right? Like it'll benefit, but is there a market for it? Because you start something and then you fall on your face and you're out, you're gone, which is not good. So we consciously waited and we did some proof of concepts and some installs, and then slowly grew the company. And we are at a stage where I think we are going to go up pretty soon. We're going to get a lot of installs. We have quite a few installs, hopefully a lot more in the next year.
Cool. Can you tell us then about the product and about the offering? What is it that you have developed in the last 5 or so years?
So, a little bit about the product is we provide a multimodal simulation, so not simulation, multimodal sensor capability, and we just don't even take the data from multiple sensors, but we also do an automated analysis. So obviously, doing all that in the same time is not easy. So we took the approach of one thing at a time. We started with simple optical cameras first, um, perfected that, and then we added thermal cameras, different types of thermal cameras in the mix, and added that to the product as well. So optical tells you some things that has already gone wrong, but now thermal cameras can start telling you mm, something that might go wrong in future. So it can help you save your builds. Uh, and optical camera helps you stop your failed builds. Thermal camera helps save your builds. Um, and the next modality is acoustics and other things where you can actually see flaws at a very small size as well.
And Sam, just to add to that comment that SK was making, in some of the projects we've been involved in, we're seeing or predicting these defects occurring 50 to 100 layers before any optical device would be able to kind of identify them. And this is where SK is quite right, because we can know this. It's out of kind of normality, the thermal profiles that we're building. We can then potentially intervene, and a part that would have actually been printed as scrap effectively is now we might be able to do something about it. And that's really exciting, I think, for the industry. And I think it also backs up the sort of Addiguru approach, where not one sensor can give you a full view of the build process. It's like looking at a sort of football game through the eyes of a telescope, looking at one player. We need to look at the whole pitch. We need to look at all the players to see what's actually happening. And that's why this multimodal approach is really key to us. And not just the long wave and near infrared sensors that, in addition to optical, it's also about integrating that within the machine controls. So we can look at gas flow and all the other things like humidity and all those other sort of sensors in the machine. And as SK is alluding to, we're not just seeing those in isolation, we're analyzing them on top of everything. So we get this really rich and sort of higher probability that these defects are going to occur. It's a really exciting time.
I understand that the software has been developed with the help of some user feedback. What were some of the kind of pressing challenges that they've communicated back to you that you guys and the team have looked to address and solve with the Addiguru platform?
Yeah, tough question. uh, uh, so user feedback has been very varied. User feedback has been from we want exactly this to we don't know what really we want. So you tell us what you can do. Mm. However, this is it. Few things are very clear from users. Users are want to make parts. They are additive manufacturing engineers or mechanical engineers or design engineers, and they love making running machines. Very smart people. They can write software too and look at data as well. However, they don't have time to do everything. So they want this software to do an automated analysis and very easy to use. And in the long run, this is our dream, and this is why we have made the software very easy to use, is every machine would have this software, and machines are run by technicians, not PhD engineers, so that it's the process is scalable. And for that, the software has to be very easy to use. It should give you a yellow light, orange light, green light kind of um, or red light kind of information with build reports and 3D views and things like that. But then they need an automated analysis. Just visualization of data is not enough. Visualization of data is great. It helps for 1 month. After that, it's not useful. So automated analysis is needed, but automated analysis is tough because it takes a lot of effort to get to 95% accurate determinations because there are a lot of edge cases. And actually, I was at ICAM earlier this week, and I presented about like what steps we take to make it the automated analysis to be more accurate.
Yeah, I was going to say a similar thing. So I've got three that I can kind of relate to. One is what SK is saying about ease of use. One of our former colleagues who used to work for a large automotive manufacturer in the US referred to some other technologies that he'd been using, and with his PhD students, it would take them a day to analyze the data. Well, by the time they've analyzed it, it's too late. So, to SK's point, we need to move faster on these things. It needs to just happen in the background. Um, the second area is the reliability of the results. This is part of the Astro America challenge that I'm sure SK will talk about shortly. But the trust in a lot of these in-situ monitoring solutions is extremely low at the moment. How can you trust it from just some optical AI analysis? And we provide that, but we also feel that we want to add more sensors in here to make sure that what we think is happening is really happening, and this is why it's happening. So you get a much more in-depth and sort of reassurance that the information you're provided with gives you an indication, as SK is saying, not just something's gone wrong, but something could be going wrong in the future layers that you put down. And then the third element, I would say, and this is something that was really, really powerful at Formnext last year, and I'm sure it's still going to be this year when we go in November, is that people are in the AM world, the only way that they can verify these parts today is CT scans. And if you're CT scanning a part that's already you already know is failed, it's kind of not. There's so much waste in AM, and this is something we've got to remove. Addiguru is that platform, I think, that's going to bridge that gap to give end users the confidence that we can build in situ monitoring and inspection reports that are going to allow you to give you the sort of confidence that whatever you're printing is correct. And I think that's something that's really exciting, what the industry needs.
So I'll pick up on the data presentation element first, but there are a couple of other things I want to come on to off the back of what you guys have just said. But in terms of how the data is presented to the operator, can you just provide a little more detail on that? Because with the software pulling so much data out of an AM build, I imagine that can be quite overwhelming. So how do you make it easier for a user, an operator, to analyze that and I guess to take from that the information that they really need?
Can I jump in, SK, for a second, just as an
Please,
observer, and then you can give the technical explanation for this, at least
please.
anyway. I think the first thing is that all the data is being captured automatically in the background. And we've been taking feedback from users about what they want to see in the foreground so they can make insightful decisions based on that information. So it's kind of like the sort of the iceberg effect. You're seeing the tip of the iceberg really in terms of visibility for ease of use, but you can dig a lot deeper. The main frame, I guess, or portal that you'll come into is a layer by layer analysis of not just optical, but the long wave, the near infrared, and then any anomalies that we're detecting layer by layer. And as SK was mentioning previously, we are not just giving you a notification that we think something's happening. We're tracing that anomaly through the multiple layers, such you get to a point where this sort of green, orange, or green, yellow, red occurrence is happening. So after about sort of 3 or 4 layers, and it still keeps happening, we're sort of saying, yes, we're tracing you, but the melt pool or the laser could still melt that away. We're seeing, it's a very complex process, laser powder bed fusion, and therefore we don't want to keep notifying you that something is happening because it might right itself. But as you start to kind of go through sort of layers 6, 7, 8, then you're getting to a point where the power of the laser might not be able to melt the rest of that material and even everything out again and give you a really good solid build. And that's where we start to define the defects. So you've got this main portal where you can see all these items being displayed at a levelable layer basis. If you want to dig deeper into this, because another factor here is that we're not just talking about production with our use. Ultimately, we would like to think that Addiguru would be used on every machine by every operator when everything goes into production. But a lot of time is spent getting the process parameters correct. So a lot of the people involved in that side of it are going to dig deeper and look at the graphs and look at the thermal profiles. And that's what's kind of nice. So you can visually see what's happening. You can dig deeper into each of these levels with indications from Addiguru using our AI and the multiple analysis. And then ultimately we're going to get to the stage where we can even have the CT scans in, we can have the tensile profiles in there as well. So you've got this almost a digital passport of each and every build. And I think that again is something that's pretty exciting that's coming to the market.
Yeah. And to add to a little bit more precise is other things like build reports and 3D view of 3D accumulation view of how you visualize the information, along with being able to export the data to your systems in a CSV file, an Excel file, as well as in an STL file to visualize on your CAD models. Those all things are also important for users, for them to provide with their build report kind of thing. So, so those all are also important, and we we provide that.
Yeah, I guess another element, just really quickly, that we hadn't touched on previously is that the Addiguru platform is machine agnostic, it's material agnostic, it's sensor agnostic. And therefore, most end users, they may start with one machine, but if they add another one, they might go large series or medium series, and they'll have different ISM elements on there again from an ease of use factor or even from a strategic software sort of consolidation perspective. Having one platform that you trust that can then analyze across all of those different machines and processes is also a big element of the adoption and how we move forward.
SK, you mentioned at the start that when you looked at doing this 20 years ago, that certain things weren't as developed as they are now, and I guess one of those, and maybe the most significant of those, might be AI and machine learning, which obviously has been a big topic of conversation in the last couple of years. What has the advancements in AI particularly allowed you to do? What does that piece of technology bring to the Addiguru solution?
Excellent question. It's been asked in one way or the other a few times. AI, so, and this is what I presented at ICAM also yesterday, is AI ML should not be just thrown like, hey, you have this data, I have this big model. You just bring it in and it gives you out some answer to you. That's not going to work. You have to use what's the best. AI is an analytical technique, just like machine learning models or a simple computer vision model, or even your simple thresholding saying, hey, if it's above this number, say it's bad, right? So AI is just more complex. It's the complexity helps in certain ways when your data is complex, like a picture data, and it has lighting that's varying. Uh, if you write simple computer vision models and things like that, it's very difficult. It uses it as noise. But if it's a picture in front of you, AI can mimic how a human being thinks. There's a picture in front of you. AI can help say, oh, these are the clouds. Like if you have a picture of a mountain with the clouds behind and the sun on the side, yeah, just like a human can tell, hey, clouds are there, sun is there, mountains there. So you cannot do that easily with regular models. So when we are seeing a picture of a powder bed, I'm using a powder bed, and you want to see part swelling, but also you want to see recorder streaking, and you want to see other things to appropriately mark it and also categorize it. You need AI, but you just don't use pure AI. You use it with a combination of other techniques, and that's what's very, very important. That you use the power of all different analytical tools and bring together the most accurate and confident solution for a user.
Another big focus of Addiguru's is optical monitoring. On the company's website, it mentions that while value can be found in other sensing modalities, optical images is where you believe as a company that you can derive the most valuable information. So can you tell us a bit more about this? How does Addiguru use these optical images, and what level of data can you pull from that process?
Yes, optical. It's like our sensing, right? We see things, we smell things, we taste things, we feel things. We sense the heat, hot and cold. So in a process which is thermal, you can first easily see what's going on optically. That's what all the operators do. So, but the operators cannot stand there 24/7, 365, right? We need and we have this beautiful AI ML technology available to us now, which computes very fast. So that is the number one lowest hanging fruit we can provide to the community that they can use and at least know that something has happened and they can then take an action. So that was the first thing we went there. Now, obviously, just like our sensor, it's a thermal process. So can we understand more what's going on with the thermal process? We have added thermal modalities, near infrared modalities, and long wave IR. So which sees different part of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Another thing I wanted to touch on today was the compatibility with various AM technologies. You mentioned that the software is technology agnostic. I think primarily so far you've been working with laser powered bed fusion. Um, there's a plan, I think, to also make the technology applicable to DD and binder jetting, and other AM processes. What work needs to be undertaken to do that, to open up the Addiguru platform to more AM technologies?
Yeah, Addiguru is a software platform. It's platform from two standpoints. One, it can take in data from different sensors, different types of sensors, and then also it can help analyze different processes, including many additive processes. So obviously, laser powered bed fusion and extrusion processes, it's already commercially available. We obviously keep improving it as well. But wire arc DED, laser powder DED, electron beam powder bed fusion, those are under development right now. We are working on a patent with the technology created with Army Research Lab in the US, and that once that's filed, we'll be able to share more. The other thing is wire arc DED. We are working with a few companies to create that solution. There's an alpha version or a beta version out yet, but we need to further improve it before we do that. And the beauty of this is being a software platform, we have a very good user interface, good understanding of AI models and how to develop them, and also a very good notification engine. So we use those commonalities and it's a very modular software which can read from different sensors. We use those advantages to make it quicker, easier, technologically also it's easier to bring it the data in and also analyze it for different processes.
I also wanted to touch on a couple of industry partnerships that have been announced over the years. The first is with Authentise. I think it was back in 2020. The two companies partnered to integrate Addiguru's process monitoring capabilities into the Authentise MES. What has been achieved through this partnership?
Yes, we Andre Authentise leader, and we have been in touch since 2020, and we had this vision of they have a software thread from end to end, but obviously in process monitoring is not their forte, and it's a uh, big undertaking anyways. So we have been in discussion that hey, Addiguru always had the vision of collaboration. So how can we work together and our data could easily fit into their software and their visualization as an add-on for a user. So it could be an extra page and things like that. So that's what we envisioned that way back in 2020, and we slowly worked on it. But then we got a little bit of boost through a funded project last year. So we worked on it and we have actually integrated that. So if any Authentize users want Adiguru's in process monitoring capability, but all the data to be visible within Authentize, that's possible as of today.
Cool. And then another one was a few years later with Xact Metal. So with Xact Metal, Addiguru partnered to launch a smart layer software solution. So tell me about the capabilities of that product, and I guess the impact that that has had for users of Xact Metal machines.
Mark, you want to go first or should I go first?
No, I'll add some color to this. When I was first, I used to work for Octon with the Additive MES solution, as they're acquired from 3D Systems. And prior to that, I've been working for Autodesk and Delcam on the subtractive, but also moving more into the sort of additive side. And having left Octon, I decided to start my own consultancy, and I was looking for some other technologies which are beyond R&D and moving into commercialization. And I was pleasantly surprised to discuss this with one of my former sort of directors at Autodesk, who introduced me to SK at I think it was Formnext about 3 years ago now. And I did my due diligence and research, and I could see that actually Addiguru platform had been white labeled within the Xact Metal solution. Why Mario doesn't do that willy-nilly. He makes very sensible decisions about who he's going to work with and why. And that really impressed upon me. And I spent a lot of time at the show talking to him and his team and the value that adds. And I think it was quite clear that whilst a lot of users today will just accept what comes off the machine, the users of tomorrow are going to need this additional insight. And so they had the foresight of actually accelerating to market faster with an integrated solution, which makes total sense. But in the background, it's obviously using all the compute power of Addiguru. And that's been evolving over time. For a lot of the customers that Xact Metal have, if they're using mild steel and things like that, the results they get are quite well known. So having in-situ monitoring is like a safety net that's there if they need it, but not always necessary. For companies that are changing parts or changing materials, that's when it becomes more important to them. And interestingly enough, SK, before he went back to Vegas, was in the UK. We were in the Northwest, over at the Center for Additive Manufacturing with the University of Bolton and that team. And obviously they have Xact Metal machines there. And we're talking to them about how we can provide more knowledge and intelligence on in-situ monitoring through the Xact Metal machine. So as I said, it's a kind of a slow burner. But actually, I think this is something where we're ahead of the curve. And I think this is something where a lot of the Xact Metal and anybody else in this space are going to be kind of interested in kind of adding this technology within their hardware, software stacks moving forward. So, yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. A little bit more color to it. Overall, as Addiguru, we want to work closely with OEMs. Ideal solution for a user is, it's kind of embedded into their machine and machine software. So we are very excited that we did that first with Xact Metal, and then we are working towards working with other OEMs to provide that solution as well.
The most recent announcement, I think, to come out of Addiguru, and Mark, I think, touched on it a little earlier, is the Astro America challenge. Can you explain a little about what that challenge or that project has involved, and I guess what comes next?
Yes, I wish our director of technology, Tom Spears, was here. He he led that effort, and he did a fantastic job. And obviously, whole team of Addiguru worked, and it's fruition of all these years of hard work and working towards I think the correct goal. Astro America Challenge was rightly was very well done. Congratulations to Astro America as well for creating such a beautiful challenge in a right way. And also, they put in a lot of hard work into it. So the challenge was uh, so the reason of the challenge was that there are many in-process monitoring capabilities. Some do analysis, some do not do analysis, but they say we still do in-process monitoring. But monitoring is a big word, right? So that's why Addiguru says in-process monitoring and issue detection, because we do automated issue detection. Um, and Astro America Challenge was about that. Like what kind of monitoring you do, what kind of issues you detect, what is the value to the user, so that they can figure out who's doing best in the industry. So the way the challenge was configured, they had 10 teams apply, and only five were selected. Those five selected were given 1 week on a concept laser M2 machine, or now Colibrium additive M2 machine. 1 week of time to either add sensors or do three builds, collect data, and then analyze the data, and then present that. So all the five companies who were selected went back to Florida to present to a panel of judges. The panel of judges consisted of most of the aerospace primes, but also some investors who were looking at the business aspect of it as well. So we were asked to present more both business aspects as well as technical findings, and that was very very interesting. And there was voting and ranking and all that. So they said that the two companies that were announced as co-winners, and we were one of them.
As we've touched on throughout the conversation, I think Addiguru is working to help manufacturers scale with AM. I think that's the kind of the motivation, the aim of the business. What do you both consider to be the key requirements for any user of AM to really kind of scale up and reach those higher volumes with AM?
Mark, you want to go first?
Great question, and I don't know how to unpack it in a 30-minute podcast, which we've probably gone over. But I think with all of these things, I mean, my 25 years in industry, one of the things that's taught me is you've got to have a smooth workflow. There's just so many machines, hardware, technologies, sensors, and it's baffling and bewildering to many end users. So one of the things that we're trying to do in that process is obviously take part in these challenges so we can actually educate the market and demonstrate that, rather than a telescope, you need multiple sensors to see this football game and as it's emerging, so you can make sensible decisions. You need to be able to integrate within different solutions. So, our APIs can work with Authentise and multiple other solutions. We've got some really exciting things that we'll be hopefully talking about at Formnext with different relationships that we're forming. I also think the market is changing. I said we're ahead of the curve. I didn't mean that in an arrogant way. I just mean in terms of most people are accepting of the waste in AM at the moment. The sort of dirty secret is that 40% of additive parts fail. Whether they fail catastrophically or whether they're slowed down because of the time it takes to get the part right first time and get your process parameters all sorted is a factor associated to that. So simplifying things, I think that makes sense. I think consolidation on some of the technologies that are out there and some of the sensors and understanding which ones add the most value and are most impactful for the market moving forward. Also cost. I mean, some of these solutions are extremely expensive. We're using technology today, which is a fraction of the price of some of the other technologies, and we're aggregating that against all of the different machine types that are out there. So for me, it's about improving, streamlining the workflow through the organization. And for us, as I said, we focus on three things. One is we focus on developing solutions that aid process parameter development. The second one is where we take that to production, and you can have a technician understanding in a traffic light system scenario, good, bad, or ugly, and then can call somebody in if we feel that we can influence the change. And then it's about feedback loops. That's the one that I think is going to be the most exciting area of AM over the next 5 to 10 years. Not because the technology is not there, but mainly because the quality assurance processes will need to change from just having a CT scan to allowing you to get the reassurance from the in-situ monitoring. And we've got some exciting projects that we're involved in both the UK and the US in parallel that we'll hopefully share more news with you about later.
Yeah. One other thing is to add to what Mark said is qualification for users, qualification of the machines, qualification of the parts is very time consuming as per the current standards and everything, and they have to do it even if they move the machine from one part of the room to another part of the room. Slight move, they have to do the full qualification again. Um, mm, Eaton publicly presented in at America Makes MMX earlier this year that it's about 150,000 or and 6 months. So it's a lot of money and a lot of time. Sometimes time is more important, and obviously money is definitely there. So if we can cut that down using some kind of multi-sensor data accumulation and a safe zone approach, if all the sensor data is in the same is all good, then you don't have to do as much testing. You just do some testing, and within 15 days, your machine's requalified. You're good to go. You're saving 5.5 months, $125,000. It'll cost you still a little bit of money to move the machine, but you're up and running. It's not that big a deal. So things like that mm, can be very helpful, and also production and other things which Mark mentioned are also very, very important for the industry. Cost is becoming important. I was at ICAM earlier this week, and one aerospace company said they go have a mandate now. The additive manufacturing group has a mandate now that they have to cut costs by 50%. Yeah.
Yeah, and the problem is only going to be compounded by the fact that we're bringing in larger series machines with multiple lasers, and how impact what impact is that going to have in the process as we move forward as well. There's going to be lots of foreign machines coming into the market, which we've been made aware of as well. So I think that's a good thing, but it still creates this confusion. And what we're trying to do is hopefully validate the machines and processes that are coming out, but then also move that into a production realm much faster than you're able to on your own. And that's being agnostic, being in the center and linking with everything else gives us a significant sort of advantage. And in terms of adoption, a lot of the primes that we work with are obviously very data conscious. And computing things on the cloud is very appealing. And I've worked for a company that we're really trying to change the ground on that with Autodesk and the Fusion technology. but the adoption can also be quite challenging because of intellectual property and security. So everything we do, I mean, we can work with the cloud to get extra compute time, but in actual fact, most people use our technology on premise. And again, I think that's another area where we get a lot of interest because people can secure their data a lot better than having it in the cloud.
So scaling AM is the goal. What's your assessment of the progress that the industry is making towards that goal?
Our industry wants it. Industry is doing it, whatever it takes. The biggest question is how do we enable that? One is standards. Standards are still not there, and it takes time to build standards. So a lot of bigger companies have their own internal workflows and writing of what needs to be done to accelerate that. Mm, But still, it's being under. But industry wants that. Industry is working towards it, and everybody recognizes that we need to reduce the cost. How do we do that? But also create reliable parts. Mm, And are being overcautious? That's another big question that is being asked because currently some parts are being produced which are better than casting and still not getting approved because more questions are asked in additive because you can collect more data. So is that is that hampering additive because it's just a little bit more digital process and that leads to more data available and people are just asking more questions or being a new process, right? So yeah, industry is working hard towards it. That is a big question for, everybody's trying to answer. But I think the big thing is how can you reduce the qualification time? How can you overall reduce the cost, qualification cost, as well as production cost? And in-process monitoring is one of the big answers. Um, I think it can. There are other things people are working on, right? Like, hey, I can fire my laser faster. I can recode in a certain way. I can do other things. But in-process monitoring, if it's implemented properly, can reduce your cost by 30 to 50%.
Finally, and thank you both for taking the time today. What's next for Addiguru? How are you looking to further develop the product and the platform, and what would you say is the vision for the company moving forward?
The the we've been on product development now with our collaborators, partners, and users for multiple years, and obviously we have added other modalities besides optical over the last few years. So the product is very good, in a good shape. I think our more focus now is to educate the market because people are not aware of these different sensors, how they can be beneficial, and educate the market and hope and implement those with them. That is a main step forward that I see from Addiguru side. Obviously, we keep developing our product in terms of keep improving it. The other thing is there are other sensors out there which have shown a lot of promise, like acoustics and eddy current, and we are actively doing R&D with those to see if they bring in additional benefit, which we can then bring into our software in the future. So a lot of so-called market education and development work coming up, as well as obviously R&D in this will never stop.
Yeah. I think validating this, making sure, as SK is saying, not just educating, but validating and proving the value proposition is absolutely mission critical, because once we've got that bit really trusted, then people can move forward a lot faster. As I said, the only solution you've got today is your part of your quality assurance process is a CT scan. CT scans take 2 to 3 weeks to come back to you. They're very, very expensive, and you're doing that for every single build. Oh my goodness, it's quite a challenge. So I do see that where yes, we're proving that the solution works, but that adoption takes time, and we need to be very carefully handling that as we move forward. And then beyond that, the platform, as SK has already sort of outlined, it's really scalable. We can take that to welding, we can take that to WOW, we can take that to lots of different areas, but we need to focus on with a small team that we've got, making sure we deliver on what the market needs for what we have now. But it's exciting.